whilst it's nice to spend all this time with you up on this hill, I think we're well overdue some shed time. So you'd be pleased to hear I've got a screwdriver. I've managed to power it up without exploding anything, although I do have a couple of these mults are upside down. I've got it working. It's my skiff. It must be. I really love MAKENOISE stuff, but I just find it so kind of impenetrable. So I had to call on some help. Sandy's here. How you doing, mate?
Yeah.
Excellent. Been a bit tricky for you too, isn't it?
Yeah, this thing's a bit baffling. I mean, it doesn't help that we've been out on the sauce for the last 2 days, really. But yeah, I mean, it's quite an interesting system that Alex has put together for you. The heart of it really is the MAKENOISE RENÉ, which is this kind of multi-dimensional sequencer.
Yeah.
You know, it's from looking at it, it's got like a 36-page manual, so it almost, I think, from looking at it, I think you need to spend a good few hours just walking through they've got some really good videos actually. They're better written than their manuals.
Okay.
But the rest of the system is quite peculiar and interesting. On the very far left here and here we've got our mults.
Upside down mults.
Upside down mults. Those are just for, and you said they were powered, so those are for,
yeah.
You can basically feed one CV signal in and take 3 out that are identical.
Okay.
And the reason the powered ones are important in this context is that you could feed volts per octave in that track properly, because if you do that with a passive mult, the more
Which is
times
essentially a splitter.
the more times you split it, the less stable the pitch becomes, and starts getting more, get some really wacky stuff, which can be fun too.
Yeah.
So then we've got one of these 2 HP. That's a random CV generator by the looks of it. I think it's like a sample and hold style thing. So you can feed that a clock, and it will just spit out random numbers, depending on the parameters that you set. And it's all like a lot of the 2 HP stuff. It's all really CD controllable. A lot of their stuff is they have these kind of horrible little pots that we've been complaining about on the plug.
Yeah, because like literally half a millimetre, and they.
But the beauty of these, I think these are really meant to be set and forget, because every single one of them has a CV control. So you know, once you get it like that, I'd be tempted to hot glue it.
Right.
Just leave it. The tempi.
I've been thinking of getting an oscilloscope so I can actually see what these things do. I don't know if that's something that you've.
Yeah, I mean, you can even get some oscilloscope modules,
right,
which are very cool. Tempi is like that's like a clock source, but a very typical MAKENOISE. Like it does a load of stuff. This thing is crazy powerful. I mean, it's basically like a clock divider, but it can also you can have different rhythms on each of these sort of 6 channels, and you can tap them out and all sorts of things like that. So you got your VCO, which is like a wavetable oscillator. It's a digital oscillator actually. So this is a morphing wavetable oscillator, so it has a bunch of different wavetables saved to it, and you can morph between those to change the timbre. And of course you can use CV to morph between them. You can do all sorts of... So the pip slope, you've got 2 of these. They're a little bit like the maths module.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Like a function generator.
So you can use them kind of like an envelope, but you can also use them. Someone corrected me for calling it a LFO.
No, it's a looping envelope. I mean, it's doing the same thing really.
Okay.
But, I mean, in my opinion. So the Mum Mate is kind of a drum and bass jungle low pass filter.
That's why Alex put this in here for me.
It's like an Akai S950, like one of these old rack mount synthesizers that just had a big knob on the front, and that you could do these great filter sweeps with. Can use this second pip and slope as a continuous kind of looping envelope. So what I'm going to do is come out of that and go into the frequency of the filter here, hit loop, and see what it's doing there. So let's have a listen to that.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this loop on here so it's a continuous envelope which will loop around, and then I'm going to cross modulate the filter with this rather kind of more random output here. So let's hear that. Okay, so let's have a look at these little cheeky muffins here. It's very interesting with MAKENOISE. They look totally impenetrable. You read the manual, you're none the wiser, but the minute you get to use them, they're actually quite intuitive. So basically with this, you have 3 sequences in one. You've got your X, you've got your Y in green, and you've got this C, Cartesian. I'm not going to get into the Cartesian because I don't understand that yet. So if I use this as a clock out into, got our X click and our Y click, and then the Cartesian it responds to both the X and the Y, but again, I'm not going to go into that today. So here we go into our X click, and then you can see that both the Cartesian and the X are gating, if you will. And then I'm going to come out of the X click, gate or trigger, if you will, and I'm going to go into there. Let's turn it down here. And then I'm also going to come out of the CV, which should control the pitch. Now you see it's cycling around all of these, and what we can do is simply switch it off. So it just goes through these 4. So these correspond to the knobs. So let's try and adjust the pitch. So basically, if I want it just to skip this step, just skips like that. But let's have them all enabled. And then if we go through these various screens, we've got the gate. So this time it won't play this gate. And then if we scroll into another one, we've got our glide. So between these two, I'm going to set a glide. And maybe these two. And then we've also got this thing called snake. So currently we're on the first preset, which basically goes that way. But we can change the way it... or this way, which goes this way. Back to the original. We've also got fun. Don't know quite what this... totally kind of random. Don't quite know how that works, but basically kind of randomizes the steps. And then we've also got the quantization. Now this is very interesting. So basically these knobs, as you can see, if I turn this up, so these are going up in steps controlled by the quantize. And what you can basically do is select the scale. So if I undo all of these, it's kind of free pitch, whereas here you totally select the scale. And then we obviously have this next grid here in green, again with all of these different things to select. And this is where I think this becomes incredibly powerful. So let's have a look at getting the Y grid to adjust the filter. These are basically 6 independent tempo controllers. I'm going to put this out of channel 2 into the Y click. See, that's... tap that. Just the attenuation on that. These two units here are going to prove to be an incredible, powerful addition to the Frankensynth. But because it's in this portable skiff, I can still take it on the road and try and figure out how this Cartesian matrix works.
And then this Tangle Quartet, I think, is a little bit like the Hex VCA that I built, except it's 4 instead of 6 VCAs by the looks of it. You can use it as a little mixer, you can use it with the pip slope to make little interesting envelope VCAs to use for things. And then you've got some outputs here. I think you've got 2 of these because you want to be able to...
Yeah, so that's why I put the mult here, so I can have basically 2 simultaneous outputs, so I can hear it, but also plug it directly into my cameras for when I'm travelling around. So actually, Sandy, you're over from Connecticut?
Yep. Right? Yeah, we're here for our little customer experience summit. We've been up painting the town red with you.
We have, very red, well, a very deep kind of Rioja red. Yeah. Before Sandy left Connecticut, he made us a film.
So with Black Friday weekend over, I haven't had much of a chance to work on the synthesizer. I've been moving my office down from one part of the house into another so that we can set that room up for Christmas. But in the meantime, I've had a couple of different projects. First of which is in the Black Friday sales, I picked up some equipment for building a new computer. It's going to be an AMD-based system on the X470 platform. And I'm going to be putting that together probably after Christmas at the current rate. So I'm going to be using the computer for music production. And I thought it might be interesting to look at how a computer gets put together for that sort of thing and some of the considerations there. Let me know if you'd like to hear a bit more about that, as well as a new computer. I was helping my future father-in-law throw out some equipment, and we came across a relic at the dump. And that was an old Apple IIe computer. Now it's in really bad shape, and I'm basically going to be tearing that completely apart and more or less throwing out the computer because it's almost unsalvageable. But I've tested the keyboard and it sort of works so far. I've still got some work to do there. The first thing I've done is taken a Teensy, which is like an Arduino based system, and I've wired that up rather horrifyingly to like an IDC 26-pin header, which is what the old Apple keyboard used to connect to its motherboard. And I hooked that up, and I have managed to get the system LED to light up on the keyboard, but besides that I haven't really gotten much out of it. It turns out that the 26-pin cable coming out of the keyboard seems to have been chewed by mice. So I'm going to order a new ribbon cable and see if I can get that keyboard working, and if it can, the next step will be deciding on what sort of system to build into there. But coming up in the new year, I'll be moving on to the Erica Synths baseline kit next, and then I'll be looking at one of the Bastel module kits for the Dynamo, which is like a CV compressor that they make. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next, really, and if you have any suggestions for the Apple II.
What's your hope with this? Because it's such a mental thing.
My goal is to really get the working keyboard sending just a regular HID like any other USB keyboard.
Okay.
And then I can use that as kind of a framework for building either like a Raspberry Pi based computer system for making music with, or one of the things that's really I think could be a really fun and totally daft way of using this old computer would be to build a skiff into it. So basically take out the top panel, get some custom made rack, maybe like a 6, I think you could probably fit 6U in it because these things were designed so that their big CRT green phosphorus monitor would sit on top.
Yes, yeah.
Give you a tan. There's probably quite a lot of space for modules in there, and if you use some small power supply thing like your row power, for instance, I'd have plenty of space for kind of wacky modules. And so the Mono, who are one of my favourite kind of smaller Eurorack manufacturers, makes the thing called the Teletype, which is like a little USB socket, little screen, bunch of inputs and outputs. I think there's one pot on there for something.
Yeah.
And it's like a little live coding CV computer almost, so you can type in commands, very like basic stuff, simple kind of like send this value to this output, or modulate this value between here and here and stuff like that. But I like there's something really sort of appealing about having this big retro computer that's like 5 years older than I am, with big clacky keys, and then having it all control with like a CD computer essentially.
Oh,
I think it could be quite a lot of fun.
I want to see. That's
yeah. So I'll get the keyboard working first, I think, and then we'll take it from there.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thanks very much to Sandy for paying us a visit this week. Hope to see him again soon. If you like what we do, hit like. If you haven't subscribed yet, more kit, more gear, more bleeps and bloops coming soon. And if you'd like to be notified the next time we put a video up, just ding that little bell. See you next time.